P.T.S.D podcast with your host, comedian and military veteran, Bernard the Laugh Therapist Hines, where we discuss PTSD, processing traumatic situations differently, and give you tools to help you overcome the stigma of seeking help. If you're ready to be inspired, then welcome to the Stigma-Free Zone. Here's your host, the Laugh Therapist himself, Bernard Hines.
Hello, everyone. I am your host, Bernard Hines, a.k.a. the Laugh Therapist, and welcome to the PTSD Processing Traumatic Situations Differently podcast. Here, we try to inform, enlighten, and become advocates for one another as we learn more productive ways to process our trauma. Always remember, as a therapist, I am not licensed. I am just medicated. Welcome to the Stigma-Free Zone. Listen, y'all, today my guest is Miss Sarah Gallardo, founder of Sarah Speaks Up. Sarah Speaks Up is a nonprofit organization that promotes domestic violence awareness. The founder, Sarah Gallardo, is a domestic violence survivor herself who encourages people to speak up about what they're going through. She is willing to go out in the public and be the face of strength and change. And as you know, with people that come on this podcast, they have turned their pain into their purpose. Please welcome Sarah Gallardo to the Stigma-Free Zone. How are you doing, Miss Sarah?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much for having me here today.
Oh, no problem. It is great having you. Listen, you are everything. Award winner, poet, author, and awareness coach. I'm going to call you an awareness coach. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a single mom of an awesome teenager. My kiddo is a transgender teen.
Okay.
I love and support very, very much.
Okay.
I am the oldest of three girls, so I have two younger sisters. I am an animal lover.
We have two dogs, so yeah.
Yeah, I've got two cats and a dog.
Okay.
So yeah, and I am also an author, a public speaker, a program developer, a poet,
Okay.
activist, you name it.
Yeah. Wow. And are you licensed in any areas?
I am a certified domestic violence counselor.
Got it. So listen, y'all, we're going to have some talk on today. And I also want to say we're going to talk about some things that might trigger you if you have been in domestic violence. So please, we do not want to trigger anybody. We want to make sure you are going to get help with what you're going through. Listen, Miss Sarah, did you see any domestic violence growing up?
I did. I witnessed my father abusing my mother, and unfortunately, he abused me as well. My sisters experienced it differently because I was the targeted child.
Okay.
So I was more of the scapegoat.
Okay.
Things were blamed on me. I was the one that experienced the bulk of the physical abuse, and my sisters were manipulated against me at times. I was manipulated against my mother. So, that has really made our healing journey as a family a tough one. But my mother and the sisters and I are now close, and we're
good. That's good. That's good. Healing is a great thing.
Yeah.
Healing. Are you a veteran?
I am not.
Okay. You are not a veteran, but you have a program, okay, that it tells. So tell us about Veterans for Victims program.
All right. So I created a program called Veterans for Victims. And the reason that I came up with this idea is because I went to give victim input.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
One of my ex-husband's parole hearings. And, I had already gone through all this therapy. I had become a domestic violence counselor already.
Mm-hmm.
I had two people with me for support, and I wasn't even in the same room as him. He was through on a video, but sitting in this room, seeing him, hearing his voice again, we talk about triggers. tears just started rolling down my cheeks. And I'm
Okay.
not saying I was crying in a way of like I was sad. It was my body's trauma response to seeing
Got it.
and hearing this person who had caused me over about a decade of abuse.
Okay.
And so when I left, I thought to myself, well, what do people do when they're still in this situation? Uh,
Mm.
if they don't have support, would they even go to court? And if they don't go, would they lose custody, visitation,
Okay.
housing? There's a whole list of bad things that could happen if you don't go and, tell your side of the story.
Correct.
So as I'm leaving, the drive back, there was some veterans event on that I heard about on the radio, and it clicked. I'm thinking,
Okay.
let's get veterans to escort domestic violence victims to and from court and
Wow.
them while they testify against their abuser. And, this is I love this program because it's a win-win. Your
Okay.
veterans engage in the community,
Mm-hmm.
touching two demographics that experience
Okay.
the highest rates of PTSD. And you're also supporting these victims and survivors.
Wow. Now, do the person that's supporting them, are they always uh, a domestic violence survivor? Like, can anybody, support them, or how does that work? Because I know sometimes people want to be able to talk to somebody who understands what they're going through, and then somebody just say, "I just need somebody here for support."
Yeah. So the veterans are not necessarily domestic violence survivors.
Got it.
Uh,
Okay.
some of them are, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not a requirement.
Got okay.
It was about feeling safe, and that's a great point that you're bringing up. At one point, we had someone, when we were doing our after action reviews, talk about feeling, happy that there was a vet there, and also appreciating the fact that there were counselors, or feeling the need for a counselor there.
Counselor.
So that's
Got it.
something that we have to look at in the program.
Wow, that's good. Listen, y'all, we're talking to Miss Sarah Gallardo of Sarah Speaks Up. Now, I know we talked about triggers and stuff like that. In relationships, okay. Now I'm getting to your life a little bit. How when you in a relationship, do you share? Which, well, you can't share it because you done shared it with the world. But
Yeah.
but how does those triggers affect relationships? Have that affected relationships that you have been in or tried to
Oh
be
yeah,
in?
definitely.
Okay.
There were some relationships that did not work out
Okay.
because of my triggers or my PTSD responses. It's a lot for some people, and it's something that I manage daily.
Yeah.
So I understand, some people feel overwhelmed by it.
Hmm. Hmm.
It doesn't always manifest. My PTSD symptoms do not always shine me in the brightest light.
I get that.
It's difficult, I think, and I assume, from your nodding that you can
Hmm.
understand. This isn't necessarily who we are. It's part of what makes us up. It's part of our psychology now, but it's not who we are at our core. And so separating yourself from your symptoms is really
Hmm.
difficult because you're the one displaying them.
Right.
Right. And so some people have trouble handling that. And I completely understand. So, yes,
Hmm.
I've lost friendships. I've lost, potential romantic relationships
Hmm.
because of PTSD.
And that's what I like to always bring that up, because is I need to show you me, the good, the bad, the ugly. Now it's up to you if you want to be a friend,
Mhm,
be in a relationship.
mhm.
And I thank God that my wife decided that, okay, I'm gonna take on this journey with this with this man with PTSD. But one of the most powerful things is when you sharing your triggers and you sharing your experiences. Don't use that against me as a weapon.
Right.
Don't throw that back up at me if I'm having a bad day, and it could not be PTSD. I could just be upset about something.
Yeah. So that, everybody's human. We're all human. And I think what's so difficult, especially with people who have more severe PTSD, which
Hmm.
means that their trauma is more severe, either
Correct.
what they saw or how long it lasted in their life. I actually have complex PTSD because
Okay.
trauma started at the age of 8.
Mm.
So between the age of 8 to 13, I was being abused by my
Okay.
father
Okay.
specifically, and then experiencing extreme domestic violence. I was shot at by my ex-husband, and to the point where it's like, yeah, loud noises scare me. I can't have anything tight around my neck. I've been strangled. And some things are strange,
Okay.
coping skills or whatever. But I think it's once you find out what works for you. And honestly, I use tape. Drop this.
Okay.
I use tape, and I've been doing this since I was 13 years old. I had no idea what tactile. Oh gosh, what tactile coping or something like
Okay.
that. Almost like the fidget spinner
Got it.
thing. So for me, it's I like the fact that I can hear it come off of each ridge of my fingerprint.
Mm.
It centers me from here in my brain to my finger, what I'm feeling, the stickiness, and I'm feeling it pull off of each ridge on my finger, and that's like a meditation type technique. I had no idea. So
But you're on the right podcast, because it said processing traumatic situation is different. I don't have to understand why you need tape on but if it helps you, that's all that matters.
yeah.
I say, as long as what I'm doing is legally and ethically, and
Mhm.
I'm not hurt harming nobody, leave me alone.
And I'll tell you what, I have tape in my purse, in my pocket, or with me at all times, and it's come in handy when I've needed to hang something or fix
Mhm.
something. I mean,
I
does anybody have tape? Yep.
That's right. I mean, we have got to the point with my PTSD sometimes that my wife, when talking to my therapist about, you know, uh, telling me, not what I did wrong or what I forgot to do,
Yeah.
that would drive me crazy, because now I feel like I'm losing it.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember this? So we went to sticky notes. You know what I'm saying?
I love
Put
that.
sticky notes in certain, now I don't feel like, she is badgering me, or
Mhm.
and she's not getting frustrated. Like, I told him that, boom, there's a sticky note. So you have to do what works for you, because
Yes.
we all process in traumatic situations differently. Come
Mhm.
on now.
Mhm.
Now, we're talking about domestic violence here, y'all. And how I know they say men go through domestic violence, but the numbers are not up, because a lot of us, a lot of men would not report that. How do
Yeah.
you break through that ceiling?
I think it's becoming more widely discussed.
Okay.
I actually work with male clients. So, I work one on one with clients on Zoom or FaceTime,
Hmm.
and we process their trauma, whether they're in the situation, whether they experience trauma from a parent or an intimate partner.
Okay.
It all depends. But I do work with men as well as women. So, just to put it out there that it's not as rare as people think.
Okay.
And, I think the expectation that because of your gender,
Mm.
you have negated some struggle, some valid life struggle that people experience. I just have a really hard time with that idea. I'm sad that men, I think collectively, feel the pressure to, men aren't supposed to cry, stiff upper,
Right.
always show up and be brave and
Hmm.
strong and put together. And it's like these expectations are part of why suicide rates you know,
Wow.
are as high as they are, because people feel like they have no one to talk to, that it's not safe. And even if they tried, nobody would believe them.
True that.
you
That
know?
is so true. Listen, y'all, we speaking with Miss Sarah Gallardo of Sarah Speaks Up, y'all. She is a domestic violence awareness coach. That's what I'm going to call you because you do. Now, I know you said I think when me and you was talking, so you left your abusive husband when your child was 6 months old, correct?
Correct.
How does that abuse affect the child? Now, listen, a child that has been in it, but your child was not in it, so he listens, so he hears everything through what you're saying. How does
Yeah.
that affect him?
You know, my son grew up watching my journey unfold,
Okay.
because when I was a client attending the domestic violence survivor support group, he
Hmm.
went in the child advocate room, and so they would start
Got it.
learning about safe touch, call 911, how to get their needs met, kind of a thing. So he grew up learning those things, and then I became a certified domestic violence counselor.
Okay.
Once that happened, I was no longer a client at that organization, and they were able to use me as a speaker, as a writer, and as an advocate working for them. So my son has seen that journey play out. Now, in the past, when he was younger, if he, like, for example, he was at my book launch, and my sister just took him out of the room when it came time for me to speak
Okay.
about a personal experience and read a chapter in the book. And that's always what happened. My son knew, you
Hmm.
know, this is a hard thing to talk about. These are grown up things. And it's not that you're not welcome, it's that I'm trying to protect you. So
That's it.
that was it. And I did my very best he slowly learned over the span of his life more of the details, but I always checked in with him first. I said, do you even want to know this? If not,
Wow.
you have no need, you have no reason. I would not, push this on you.
That's good. That's good because that's what I had to do with my kids. I had to let my therapist, explain to them what is going on with their father because I really couldn't understand what was going on with me. So it's best that someone else explain. And as you being an advocate for others, you are also being an advocate for your child.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good. That's good. And when me and you had our introduction talking, I think we did a whole podcast right then. But you said you said something that your child was doing was looking just said in the school they was doing program or something about a writer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So right now, in his English class, the teacher assigned that every student has to present a
Okay.
poem, but any poet any poet that they know.
Hmm.
My son chose me.
Wow.
So, it's really interesting now. Most of the topic of
Hmm.
poems are about either experiencing child abuse or domestic violence.
Wow.
And my son does not know the specifics of the child abuse that I experienced. So I
Okay.
don't share those things with him yet. And again, that's my decision as a mother to
Correct.
protect him and age appropriate information. But yeah, he chose me and he chose one of my poems. So, in his own way, now in his school community, he's kind of coming out as or standing into his own truth of
Hmm. Hmm.
this is part of my life because it's
Correct.
my mom's life.
Correct. And kids will be affected. I don't, you can try to shield them as much, but kids will be affected. And the sooner we get them help, the sooner we get them understand. And the sooner we listen to them
Yes.
because
Yes.
they have a voice too.
Yeah, my son is in therapy, and I think it's important for him to have a therapeutic outlet, to have another adult with whom he can discuss his thoughts and feelings. It's really, really helped him a lot. I mean, having grown up without a father was
Hmm.
a really difficult experience for him. I did my very best, and I tried to do as much as I could, but there are some things I just cannot do and I cannot be.
Correct. Correct. Now, how does that how would you feel, or if it has happened, once your teen grows up, want to be or know who, the father?
I have asked that question, as a matter of fact, because my ex-husband recently called me. And in the past, he wasn't able to be, well, he didn't because of protective orders,
Hmm.
that, or as a stipulation of his probation, getting out of prison, he wasn't supposed to contact me, but that timed out.
Okay.
So he still know my cell phone number is the same, and he called me on December 16th.
Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Somebody would say, well, why you ain't change your phone number?
Yeah, yeah, I know.
Hmm.
You're right, exactly. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
The reason I didn't change my number is because there were certain that I changed my whole life. I have moved to get away. I have changed friends. I have stopped talking to many people. I have lost relationships, job opportunities, all kinds of things. I twisted and turned my life in ways and places that I really didn't want to have to do. And
Hmm.
that was one of the ways, one of the things that I chose to keep. And that's that.
That's what you chose to do. I mean, and that's right. Whether it feels right to someone else, you chose that for you.
I don't feel like I should be in charge of removing all the potential ways that he could reach me. I
Okay.
think that there's onus on him. And I have to set my expectation that no, sir, I don't want to speak with you. And I expect you not to reach out to me. And I expect him to behave accordingly. So I have to realize that I can do X, Y, and Z all I want, but it's on him too.
Correct. Correct. And it really is. So how are you going to cross that bridge, or if you are crossing the bridge that he wants to be in touch with it?
Yeah, thank you for circling me back.
No, we're good. We good.
Yeah, so I have asked him that recently because of the phone call. When
Hmm.
my ex called, he asked about my son, and I hung up, and
Okay.
I did I actually filed for another restraining order, and it was
Okay.
so, but after the fact, I'm thinking my son did not make that decision. He's now 15 years old. Does he want to know this person? And if so, me constantly making that decision for him, it's going to get to the point where it's almost like if you tell your kid you never, never do this thing, and it's like they want to do the thing now.
Correct. Correct.
So I spoke with him and I said, look, this is going to be a tough conversation, but I want you to know you can be honest with me if you feel like you ever want to reach out to your biological father or know or meet or any of those things. And my son said, Mom, I've heard the things you said about
Hmm.
him, and I know those things. I believe you. He said, but it also helped that other people, for example, my sister and other
Hmm.
people who knew him from before, have said to my son, do he's dangerous.
Got
He's
it.
dangerous. And so those other people weighing in helped affect my son's decision. And so at this time, he does not have any desire to know his father.
Wow. Sarah, you don't know you helping some people. You are helping some people with some tough questions, some tough situations. Because sometimes as a parent, we don't know, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah. And you know what? For so much of this, whether my son wanted to start therapy, whether or not, to go to this particular school or try this sport, or talking about, what of my experience do you want to know?
Hmm.
I have open communication with my
Right.
child.
You have to.
And the reason is because I grew up not experiencing that.
Okay.
So I knew I wanted to be the kind of parent, at the very least, who my son could come to and say, this is tough. I got to talk it out with you, mom.
That's good. That's good. That's good. We have to be that advocate. We talked about, like I said, our introduction that we talked about. Like I said, it was a whole podcast. And I said, hey, stop, hold up. We got to use this for the show. What are you doing? About you said the reproductive.
Reproductive abuse.
Yes, reproductive abuse. Explain that to me.
Yeah. So this is not a widely discussed or even
Okay.
known about form of abuse. And this is also different and difficult depending on culture, depending on your religious beliefs,
Okay.
societal structures, the way that they view pregnancy and childbirth. It's not all the same.
Got it.
So some of those things can come into play. However, it manifests itself in one of two ways that I am aware of.
Okay. And this is your story.
Yes. One of the ways is that one partner uses potential pregnancy as a bargaining chip. For example, saying, we can start trying to have a child if you do this. Once you start making this much money, then we can get pregnant. Or in my case, it was that I wasn't allowed to take birth control. My husband knew that he wanted to get me pregnant. And the reason is because he wanted someone or something to always have us connected.
Correct.
And that's unfortunate because, it made my situation much more difficult with custody and money and everything.
Correct. Okay.
So he ended up, I did get a prescription for birth control. I would hide it. And over time, once I wasn't getting pregnant, he became suspicious. He searched through my stuff and found the pills. He flushed them. He would rape me. And, I think a lot of that was to do with sort of the power and control dynamic that we mentioned of saying an unspoken way, an act of showing I make the decisions about what happens to your body. I am the one who's in control, not you. So I got pregnant and I had 2 miscarriages.
Okay.
Before I eventually gave birth to my son, who I have now. The miscarriages were the most heartbreaking thing that I experienced, the most heartbreaking form of abuse.
Okay.
And he would tell me that it was my fault that I had miscarried because I wasn't strong enough to carry a child. And mind you, though, he really had become more violent.
Okay.
So for women in particular, 2 of the most dangerous times are 1, when they're trying to leave, and 2, when they're pregnant.
Okay.
And the reason is because that power and control dynamic shifts and people start paying attention to her, doting on her, helping her. And, he's supposed to put his needs on the back burner, not all of them, but
correct.
Speaking that the dynamic changes. Once that baby is born, then she's paying much more attention to the child. People are as well. And so in that dynamic, that person's needs are not being met. And they're actually afraid of what that's going to be. So they lash out against it.
Wow, that's good. That's good. Listen, y'all, this is her story, and she is speaking up. Listen, how does your faith, or how did your faith play a part in your domestic violence?
That's a tricky question.
Okay.
My faith was part of what caused me to get married to begin with.
Okay.
And I write about this in my book. I was attending church, and after becoming so isolated in my life from friends and family, my church community was the one group of people who I still had contact with.
Okay.
And once I did get pregnant, with my son, they said to us, you are an example to the youth in our church, and we expect that, if you are intimately involved with someone, that you need to be married. And so if you don't get married, unfortunately and sadly, we love you, but we can't have you keep coming to the church. And so that's part of why I got married. I was 6 months old when we got married, and
you was how? So what now?
6 months pregnant.
God.
Not old.
It's all good. It's all good.
Thank you for
we've been talking about a lot. Yeah, we're good. It's good. Go ahead.
Yeah,
you were 6 months pregnant.
6 months pregnant. 6 months pregnant.
Okay.
Say that 5 times fast. No, not right now.
That's just like saying your name. I can't.
Um, so yeah, we got married when I was 6 months pregnant,
Okay.
and I continued going to the church, but I realized too that the marriage was not going to last, and we weren't even married for two. We weren't even married 1 whole year before he actually went to prison.
Wow.
Yeah.
For abuse or something else?
Well, that and other crimes.
Okay, got it. Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now I think, I was raised Catholic. I became Christian. At the moment, I am attending a Unitarian Universalist church. I find the focus on community and
Hmm.
social justice
Okay,
I love. So it's a faith community. And for
got it.
right now, that is serving me.
That's right. Hey, that is perfect. We're gonna have faith one kind of way. Either we're gonna have it or we're not gonna have it. So
I
it
need to have it. I need to have it.
need it.
Need
Got to have it.
Gotta have it.
I have a t-shirt that says I talk to God and a therapist.
Cover all the bases.
Because you can have both. You
Yeah,
can have both.
you can. You should.
Listen, y'all, we are talking to Miss Sarah Gallardo of Sarah Speaks Up. Now, I see you have a nice little book behind you. So tell us a little bit about your book without telling us about your book, because then people won't buy it. The
Banner
book.
White kind of a
The
thing.
book.
Yeah. So my book is called Hiding in Plain Sight, A Glimpse into the Reality of Domestic Violence.
Okay.
And I am currently trying to have it made into a limited series or movie.
Mm,
Really hard at that. So if anybody's interested, let me know. But yeah, it is a labor of love. I wrote
okay.
not for myself, but for the potential readers. And people ask me, who's your audience? And for me, I found that anybody could and should be my audience. People who've never experienced DV.
That's right.
If you have, so there's tidbits for everyone, really. And the second half of it goes through, what to say to someone if you're trying to help, and what not to say to someone. Because what not to say sometimes is more important.
That's right. Like,
So it's
why you still in that? You know you better than that. You know you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's a whole piece about, why didn't you just leave, or why did you stay, that addresses that, because you don't understand people's financial situation.
Yep.
You don't understand the threats that person has made. Did they say they'll kill your family, your pets, your children? Did they say, they'll stalk you? You don't know. So please try not to assume, and rather be compassionate and empathetic and supportive.
Correct. And that's when my pastor, my bishop, he would say, people saying grandmother had to stay back in the day because they didn't have no education. Some of them had education, some of them had financial. The man was the breadwinner, but now, people have resources to be able to leave.
Exactly.
Yes.
So,
Now,
the book touches upon a lot of that. It also touches upon financial abuse, because that's another thing. If the person is controlling the finances and you can't, because you can't afford to, all of these things, they're mentioned in the book. Like I said, writing this was a labor of love. I didn't really know if I could get through it. I got to the point where, the editing process is supposed to be, I mail the manuscript to the editor.
right.
They send it back to me, and then I approve whatever they want to change or not. And I'm reading it back and forth now. Once again, I'm talking about the last period on a sentence. I handed this to my editor. I said, I cannot touch this anymore. I have done all that I could do. I trust your judgment. Please. And Heather Habelka is her name. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman, friend, person, editor. And Jen T. Grace is the CEO of Purpose Driven Publishing. So they were my guides throughout this process. And I needed them. I leaned on them hard because I said, I can't do it anymore. And, as a team, we got this done.
Wow. That's good. I'm gonna have to write my book. I'm hard headed right now, so I'm gonna be intentional this year to to start something. And the part you said about financial abuse, then you might want to speak to my wife about that because she has an Amazon demon, and we're trying to get that demon up out
Oh,
of her.
you're trying to exercise that.
Yeah, trying to exercise that.
Oh goodness.
Now, what are some of the things that people can spot or can look at for someone who's going through domestic violence? Because they all look different in some places. Some people know how to cover it up well. Some people don't.
So are you asking how to spot an abuser or how to spot an abused person?
Both.
Okay. I spot abusers when they are overbearing,
Okay.
or they can be silent and just
Mhm.
will keep the other person quiet. If they are rude to other people, assuming they're definitely rude to their partner. If they are controlling in any way, even if they're controlling of other people, places, and situations, you can assume that they are that way in their intimate relationship. Spotting an abused person, that is someone who is typically withdrawn, more quiet, hiding if they're pulling their sleeves down a lot. I mean, some people do that. It's just a security thing. Some people have bruises
Bruises.
on their body and they're trying. So if it's very hot out and they're wearing long pants and long sleeves, something like that, you can see a lot by a person's body language.
Okay.
You are part of their life. I mean, I'm kind of interpreting your question as from an outsider, you're passing by someone on the sidewalk. But if you have a friend relationship and they don't answer the phone as much, they're not texting you back in the way that they used to, they can't go out with you anymore, their clothing style starts to change, if did they quit their job, have they dropped out of school, these kinds of things. And what you want to do is make sure that if you are going to reach out to anyone who you suspect is potentially being abused, make sure that you do this in the safest way possible. Usually it's verbally because the person cannot hear or trace it. Via email or text can be read even after someone, you could look at your phone, your account online and see people's text printed out. So you don't know. Now that's technological abuse, which is if you put a tracker on someone's car, using their phone to get their location services, looking always through their phone or their emails or those kinds of things, or their social media, for example. And these are all tips or ways to tip you off that something's going on. But usually the way to offer help is verbally and not forcefully, because you always keep in mind that you're trying to talk to someone who's being controlled by someone else. So you can't show up and be like controlling in a way that you're trying to help.
That's good.
Still, it's control. You have to help empower that person to make their own decisions. And at the end of the day, you can't make a person leave.
Wow. That's good. That is good. That is, woo. You can't be the controller trying to help a person who is being controlled. Good gracious. Yeah. That right there speak. If I could spell, I would put that on a t-shirt.
Your wife do it. She can.
Yeah, but then she gonna want the residuals to go to Amazon.
So. But that maybe could pay for the Amazon account.
There you go. Always trying. Listen, tell us a little story about you when you had to go and speak in the male prison. Because everybody needs an advocate. So let the people know about that.
Yes. So I think the moral of this story is that you can have allies in people you would not normally suspect. So try and check your preconceived notions at the door. That's what I think I learned from this anyway. So here I am now. I'm all of 5'1", asked to speak at the men's federal prison in Danbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
Now, there's no guest hallway down, you're walking inside the whole actual prison. So I'm like,
There's no green room that you go and sit in with us.
there's no auditorium where, they're like, in this room, you talk. There's just the wall, walls and chairs. It's
Mhm.
nothing pretty. So I was escorted through this place by 4 guards, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. Get into the room. Now, I'm trying to cover up all the skin that I possibly could. I'm not trying to look even remotely, not even sexy. I'm trying to
Correct.
overlap that.
Right.
So here we are now, and the men start to come in. I'm standing in the front, and of course, there's guards. And there were just chairs in lines, where the men were supposed to sit. And one of the
Okay.
first people who walks in was this very tall, very muscular black man who walks over to the end of the chair, and he pulls one out of the line and puts it in the corner of the room.
Okay.
So his back was in the corner. I understand some people feel that they need to do that for safety.
Mhm. That's right.
But regardless, that's where he was sitting alone. So I noticed that. I was kind of like, red flag. I'm not sure, but I've got guards, so I'm okay. Then trickles in this very tall white guy who was smiling up and, appearing nice.
Correct.
Sits front and center. So I'm like, okay, I do my speech. I open up to questions and I say, does anybody have any questions? So the guy in the front, one of the first ones, raises his hand and he's like, so how much of that was your fault? Like, if you had to say what your fault was in all of that, what was your fault in it? And he kept, like, it was clear that he wanted
A rise out of you, as we call it.
well, he didn't get that.
Right.
He was like, well, actually, and I was like, actually, if I had to take, responsibility for anything of that nature, I think that I stayed too long. I mean, I'm sure that I stayed too long. However, the reasons that I stayed were X, Y, and Z, right? Just answered the question and moved on. Next
Mhm.
gentleman who raises his hand is the one in the corner. I'm like, sir. He said, don't you listen to him.
Mm.
None of that was your fault. So I'm proud of you for getting up and leaving whenever you did. He was like, and now you're helping people. He was like, I have a mother, I have sisters, I have aunties. And let me tell you something, I admire you. So good for you. And the rest of the time, he would, somebody would say some wonky thing and I'd just look over like, so that was my guy. He was my ally,
That's good. And we all have to have them. We all have to, and they might not come from where you think they're coming from.
Exactly.
Man, listen, y'all, we have your saying behind you, be a voice, not an echo. Sarah, you are definitely being that. You are definitely being that for domestic violence awareness as well as folks with PTSD. You're doing a great work. What would you like people to take away from your story?
I would like people to know that, first of all, they're not alone.
Okay.
They're not alone, that there is help out there. And I want to say something that is really important to me. I have dealt with PTSD my whole life. I have had suicide attempts.
Okay.
I have been in such a dark place, in the depths of despair, that I thought people were better off without me. And I know that sounds like a cliche thing, but if you sit with what that actually means for
Been there.
an individual, that the absence of me is better for the world. That's just the depth of despair that person is experiencing. And what I want to say is this: I needed hope. I needed love, and I needed faith. So if you are feeling like you are in the depths of despair, because I know that so many people these days are feeling at the end of their rope, they're not sure what to do, who to turn to, anything. Those are the things that you seek. Find someone who loves you. Find something to hope for and something to have faith in. and please get help if you need it.
Wow. Listen, y'all, we have been speaking to Miss Sarah Gallardo of Sarah Speaks Up. Listen, y'all, she has dropped nugget after nugget. Please go and subscribe to my podcast. It's on all podcast platforms. Share this with someone who needs to hear this. Maybe you can say, hey, I know you might not want to talk about it, but listen, just listen to this right here. Now, where can people find you at on social media and things of that nature?
Yes, I am reachable. So I am available on Facebook. You can
Okay.
find me, Sarah Speaks Up, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can email me at sarahspeaksup@gmail.com. That's Sarah with an H.
Okay.
And there are contact me abilities on Facebook or any of those other social medias. So
And that's how I found you.
yes,
I
yes.
contacted you on Facebook. So
Yeah,
it does work.
it does work. I will respond to you.
Listen, y'all, thank you, Miss Sarah. Please, y'all, go purchase her book. Put your book back up there one more time. Please go purchase her book. It is on her website, www.sarahspeaksup.com. Hiding in Plain Sight, y'all. Please go and get the book. And it's going to be a movie one day, and I'm going to play this therapist.
Yes.
I'm going to play the therapist.
Okay. You're speaking all of this.
I'm speaking it. That's right. I'm speaking it.
Yes.
Again, thank you. And you are now released from the stigma-free zone. Peace.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a real pleasure.
And it was a pleasure having you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to the PTSD podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit follow or subscribe on all podcast platforms so you can stay up to date on new episodes. Until next time, stay stigma-free.